this QR guides you to my Instagram page. My Instagram page has stories, and in these stories, we'll go through the stories together, because the topic I want to deal with is how iPhone devices create identities in the girlhood and in the group of sexual minorities and all the other kinds of minorities. So, Latsan described the mirror stage as a formative phase in which the infant first recognizes their own reflection, leading to the initial sense of the coherent self. This visual recognition, however, creates a split or alienation between the idealized image in the mirror and the chaotic inner experience of body and mind. This ideal of imaginary selves gives a rise to identity that is inherently external, that is fragile, and rooted in an image, yet central to the individual sense of self. So, if we go to the story number 2, we will see the picture of Alice in the mirror, or Alice in Wonderland. I will dedicate this talk to the reproduction of the identity of the girls online, and I will be using the metaphor of Alice looking through the mirror, or Alice in Wonderland, inspired by the book of Joanna Welsh, Girl Online. Lucky we don't need that anymore. Okay, if we go to the third story, the third story represents Surveillance Bed by Julia Scher in 1994. So, when I'm speaking of a girl, I'm referring to a symbolic category, unfixed from biological, sex, or social gender, because to participate online is to be a feminine subject. Because it subjects one to a self-surveillance from the perspective of the masses. Thus, everyone is a girl online, and you right now. If we go to the story number 4, it says, who are you when you are not performing for the people inside of your mind? As girls have been taught from a young age to perform and are coded by the gaze of their social surrounding in order to become the most desirable version of the self, this performativity, which lives outside of the digital realm, now translates from the social gaze through the surveillance through our screens. So everywhere where there's camera, everywhere where people have phones, there is a possibility you feel observed and you subconsciously perform. So through this mirror of your phone, you probably are creating another division of yourself, which this image of yourself, which you're creating in a mature age, if you're not a girl, is something that girls have been taught through a young age in their childhood, is how to perform. If we go to the next story, story number 5, it shows Alice in Wonderland in her reshaped scenario. So if we observe the girl through the character of Alice, we can conclude that the girl, same like Alice, is in a perpetual change, not simply in terms of growth, development, but as well as orientation, direction, and trajectories. So if we go to the story number 6, we'll see a scenario from Alice in Wonderland where she's constantly confused, disoriented, and has no idea where she is. So tired and disoriented every time she falls in a vortex of a new mirror, enchanted by her narcissistic self-perceival and childlike curiosity, Alice seems to never learn and falls into a new reality in which her body assimilates and it's forced to perform in order to survive, constantly recreating her identity. If we go to the story number 7, we see here that Caterpillar asks Alice, "Who are you?" And she replies, "I hardly know, sir. I came so many times since this morning. I do not see, Caterpillar said. Explain yourself. And she says, I'm afraid I can't explain myself, sir, because I'm not quite myself. So every time Alice falls into a vortex of a new reality, she changes her identity to fit the standard of the current reality. She each time forgets a little piece of herself. Where each step further, she's a little bit closer to amnesia, forgetting the original version of herself and her identity. If we go to the next story, the story number 8, it's a picture from a Netflix series, What Comes Next, in which James Cameron explains one of his experiences with parents from dementia, where he compares the angst where one of his parents was experiencing before getting dementia to the current socio-political state. So before the dementia or amnesia in Alice's sense comes anger, fear, and anxiety. So, if we want to channel the technology to good use, how do we alleviate that anxiety? In the story number 9, we'll see, and I think it's very much known to all of us, that the Gen Z generation suffers strongly from anxiety, and this anxiety is approximately at 71%, as said by ChatGPT. If we go to the story number 10. In story number 10, I'll be referencing Paul B. Preciado in his book, Apartment in Uranus. And he writes here about amnesic feminism. He says, as is the case in almost all forms of political, subaltern struggles and minority-resistant movements, feminism suffers from a chronic lack of knowledge about its own genealogy. It doesn't know its vocabulary. It forgets its sources, loses its texts, and doesn't have the key to its own archive. In his theory of the concept of history, Walter Benjamin reminds us that the history is written from the viewpoint of the conquerors. That is why the spirit of feminism is amnesic. Benjamin invites us to write history from the viewpoint of the conquered. This, he writes, is the only way it will be possible to interrupt the time of oppression. So, the big thing about technology is that we don't know who the conquerors are. I mean, we know about the guys who lead the tech companies, but we cannot constantly blame them for everything that their technology does, because we don't know, they also don't know how their technology evolves. So same like Alice, in this point, feminism becomes amnesic. If we go to the 11th story, it says playing dumb strategically is the best thing you can ever do. So basically, I realized the only thing I can do in my work to alleviate the anxiety is to break the esotericism of the digital realm and to try to take over the role of Alice and exit in different realms by using my body as a testing ground for my projects. And when I perform, I try to use XR technologies, in which then I become the performer, which is immersed in this scenario. And this scenario is often using like a mainstream media or technologies which are available to all of us. And you can see on the 12th story that that's me as an Alice. If we go to the 13th story, we'll see the work which has been supported by the help of Container. And it is called Mint Me, I'm an Artist. This work has been created together with, in a duo Xenofem, which is made by me and by my colleague Ginevra Petrozzi. And in this work, together with Nicola Scheibe, we wanted to explore what it means to be a female performer in a realm of NFTs. So how can a female enter this, integrate this system, and how can this female performer kind of benefit from this, this whole realm? So what we did is we 3D scanned our bodies, we made them into pieces, and we were selling them as NFTs live. And the installation was working as a VR speculative scenario in which one enters the store, as you can see on a reel. And in this reel, in this VR, you can press the different parts of the body, and you get a description of the artist, where this arm has been performing, what is this arm capable of, in which state it is. And then you could buy it because the link was sent through your email. And then another example where I'm infiltrating the system as an Alice is on the story number 14. If you go, there will be a project called Why Won't You Date Me? And in this project, I try to beat amnesia one more time by kind of fighting these stereotypes, or maybe they're not stereotypes, maybe they're true, of how our data is being influenced in dating apps and how we are matched, and how this whole system works. So what I did with this project is I researched into how European courting rituals relate to the dating apps, because I believe that all of the systems that are existing in digital realms exist in our society. We just found another way to mirror them. So what I did is I mixed the courting ritual elements together with the online dating apps. I went on 4 dates in 4 days. These dates were streamed live, and they were live transmitted through my hometown in a public square. And people in the audience had on their phone a specially designed app through which they were able to send us commands on what to do on the date. And these commands were coming right to our date, back to our date, and we needed to react by it. So basically what I wanted to show is that online dating apps and how algorithms work and what they recommend is not that much difference from the surveillance our parents were experiencing, or some of us, or our grandparents. It's just in a different context, and I tend to believe that it's not so esoteric. So I, once again, try to wake up Alice. And then on the next slide, I want to thank you for being here and for listening, and follow me, because this is a valuable networking opportunity. And thank you for listening.